Welcome to Wachacha's Tabletop World. My name is Sweetness Wachacha, and today I'm going to show you how I built my own little holder for cards for LCGs. Okay, so this was my solution to a problem I had. I guess you could say a problem. There's a very cool acrylic holder that Buy the Same Token makes. I really liked that holder. I thought it was very cool. It is like $300, something like that, $260, somewhere in that neighborhood. Used to be something like $80, but I guess they were having trouble making them or getting enough volume, so that they had to raise the price. Simple economics. But I spent about 20 bucks to make my own here. I did two different versions, and I'll show you how I did both. This isn't really a tutorial because I'm not very good at making things. I make things all the time, but they usually come out a little bit janky, so this is just more like to inspire or to get your own brain working, and hopefully that you can find a way to make your own. I will say that I really do like this company, Buy the Same Tokens. They seem to be the high watermark of the token world, especially for Marvel Champions, and so I made it so that this channel could hold those tokens. I've got a lip on the bottom here so that the tokens don't fall off, and then they can sit here and the cards can sit here. I did 3 horizontal and 3 vertical, and I think that'll be useful for both Lord of the Rings and for Marvel Champions. So let's take a look at how I did it. So the first one, in both these cases I had boards on hand. I had about a 1/4 inch MDF, so I put them through my table saw. Now this is granted, you'd have to have tools and things to do this, although as I say, this is kind of like to get your own brain working, so maybe you could do this with using other things. I bet you could probably use foam board, maybe that might work as well. But anyway, so I ripped these through the table saw. I did one solid piece. I did the dividers for each of the things, and I did a lip for the bottom and a place for the tokens to sit, as you can see on the screen here. Then I gave them a quick sand down. I did notice that the dividers were, they weren't very precise. My table saw seemed to have cut them a little bit strangely, a little not so precise looking, which for this kind of a project, I think you'd want them to look nicer. So that was a little bit of a problem. Then, as I said, I sanded them down, and then I got this cheap vinyl. It was like $5, very, very inexpensive. And I decided I would cut that to kind of lay over all the other pieces so that it looked nicer. So it was like it has a nicer finish and a smoother finish. And so I thought, now that it peels away, but that's like a nightmare because like it sticks to things, you get air bubbles, you have all these kind of problems. So I decided that one thing I would do would be to just glue the back of it. Then you can kind of slide things into place a little nicer. You don't have to be worried about like I'm laying this down and now this thing is sticking to itself. It can be quite a problem, so I decided just to glue it. Now, unfortunately, there were a few problems with this. I should back up. So I used a grid on the back to space things evenly and nicely, and when I was gluing it, I used an old brush so that I wouldn't have air bubbles. You know, I put the glue down, then brushed it on so it would be nice and smooth and flat, so that it wouldn't be kind of like a little bit crazy and bumpy. However, after I put the other items on, I left the dividers out first. I laid everything down, and then I put the dividers on and kind of glued them in place using the vinyl as a guide. But a couple problems here. There's a very slight overlap over the edge with the vinyl, and when I put the bottom on, it caused a crease as well as some other air bubbles you can see despite my best efforts. And then the wood didn't really stick that well, and there's a little bit of an overhang on some of the vinyl as well. So, you know, it didn't work out great. I had some other things in mind, but this is kind of what I did. So I thought, okay, I'll go back and get the other things that I had. So that was kind of my first go. You might be able to alter that to work better for you, but that was kind of the pitfalls of that particular design. But all in all, for 20 bucks maybe, not a bad little solution, although my time, of course, but I think I did a little better the second time around. So on the second version, I decided not to do one, continuous length. I decided to change the lengths up because I was going to build it in 2 different parts, and I'll explain why I did that in a second. So I did 3 cards vertical, 3 cards horizontal, same as before. I ripped them through the table saw, same as before. I did the channel, the thing for them the tokens to sit on. the two back pieces, the taller and the shorter, and then not pictured here, but I realized I had to go back and make one single piece along the back just to strengthen that back up. So I added that as well. Sanded all the pieces down, and I clamped and glued everything down, as you see, so that that would be a little stronger this way. Then I took, and this is something that I use quite a lot doing dioramas and like terrain and stuff, and that's these like sort of, I guess they are maybe vinyl, some kind of plastic, and that's just something where you see constantly these, or commonly rather, is these like garage sale signs and things. And I use this particular one quite a bit. I go to Menards in the Midwest here, and I just cut all those plastic pieces because they're a little, they're thick, so they're like, they have some, some sturdiness to them, so they won't bend on their own. They'll look a little nicer. So what I did was I cut all those to size to go along the bottom, along the lips and stuff like that, with the intention of spray painting it. Now, the reason I did two different pieces, I would have preferred just to lay one piece across the back. But the biggest sign I could find, the garage sale sign I could find, now this is one of the pitfalls, is that the letters are sort of embossed, so if you painted them you would still be able to see the letters, and so I couldn't find that. So I thought the natural break between the horizontal and vertical would be very useful, to use that as like sort of a natural break for your eye, to have a break in the bottom board, So I cut up these pieces separately because I couldn't find one long enough, as I say, and I glued them down. I glued all the little pieces down. First, I spray painted so that anything that would be visible, maybe just to be careful, if just like an edge or something, I don't want to be able to see that. So I just ahead of time spray painted all the edges and everything. Then I glued down the cut garage sale signs onto the holder, and then I spray painted everything down again. For the dividers, I ended up using these. I'm going to put them on the screen now. This is something you use a lot when you do scratch building and model building and dioramas as well, and that's these little pieces of plastic. This is often seen with like plastic card type stuff. These pieces, cutting them is a little bit tricky, and there's like a whole rabbit hole of ways to cut these things and stuff, and there's tons and tons of videos on that alone. So I essentially, and I would urge you, if you decide to do this, to look up some of those videos, but essentially you kind of score it a bunch of ways, crack it, snap it, and then file that down with like a file that you would use for tools, or you can sand it with sandpaper. So that's what I did there, and then I glued all those down as well, spray painted the whole lot, and there you go. I was much happier with this version. As you see, it seems to be very useful. This one cost me about $20 as well. I did have the MDF, but I don't think that it would cost you more than $20 to do this. Spray paint the plastic card pieces, maybe a 2x2 piece of MDF, and those garage sale signs, they're only a couple of bucks each, and some spray paint. So very inexpensive to do. That was my solution. It works very well. I found it to be very enjoyable, and it makes the game a lot easier. Of course, this did take me a couple of hours because there was a little trial and error and stuff, but I don't think it should take you more than, an hour total, although you have to like sort of, glue things down, let them dry, and etc. So it's not too long. You could do a little bit each night or whatever. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful to you if you have been looking at that really cool. I mean, there's no holding a candle to that acrylic one. It looks very nice, very, very cool. But this is a great solution for me. I just could not impart almost $300 for that thing. I did buy the tokens, which were pricey as well, but they seem really, really fantastic, really good quality. Anything that helps with bandwidth, I find, anything that cuts down on the time you're thinking about things that are not the game, is wonderful. And especially, I've played almost 900 games of this so far, and I'm like probably going to play just as many moving forward. So I find that like that is a great investment to help me enjoy all of those times of playing the game. So, well, for now, I gotta roll.